In 1962, China and India clashed in a brief but bloody border war. The conflict, rooted in territorial disputes, resulted in a humiliating defeat for India. The war cast a long shadow over the relationship between the two Asian giants. It fueled mistrust and suspicion that persisted for decades. The 1962 war highlighted the importance of military strength in a volatile region. Both nations embarked on programs of military modernization and expansion. They sought to secure their borders and deter future aggression. The legacy of the war continues to shape the strategic calculus of both China and India today. The memory of the 1962 conflict serves as a stark reminder of the human and economic costs of war. It underscores the need for dialogue, diplomacy, and a peaceful resolution to the long-standing border disputes. The shared history of conflict makes it imperative for both nations to find common ground and build a more stable and cooperative relationship. Since 1962, both China and India have undergone remarkable transformations. China, in particular, has witnessed an unprecedented economic boom. It has become the world's second-largest economy and a global powerhouse. This economic strength has enabled China to undertake a massive military buildup. It has invested heavily in modernizing its armed forces.
India, too, has made significant economic strides. It is now one of the fastest-growing major economies in the world. India has also steadily increased its defense spending. It seeks to address its security concerns and maintain a credible deterrent against potential adversaries.
Despite their economic growth, both China and India face significant challenges. Poverty, inequality, and social unrest persist in both countries. These internal challenges compete with military spending for resources. They highlight the complex trade-offs faced by both nations as they seek to balance economic development with national security.
China's military modernization has been nothing short of breathtaking. The People's Liberation Army, or PLA, has undergone a profound transformation. It has acquired advanced weaponry, including stealth fighters, aircraft carriers, and hypersonic missiles. China's defense budget has grown steadily for decades.
Some analysts believe that China significantly underreports its actual military spending. They point to the PLA's rapid modernization and expansion as evidence. The lack of transparency surrounding China's military capabilities raises concerns among its neighbors. It fuels regional tensions and creates uncertainty about China's long-term strategic intentions.
China's growing military might is a product of its economic success and its determination to reclaim its historical position as a leading power. The PLA's modernization is driven by a desire to project power, defend China's interests, and deter potential adversaries. This assertive military posture has raised alarm bells in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Despite its military superiority, China is unlikely to wage war against India. This is due in part to the lessons learned from its own history. China's disastrous intervention in the Vietnam War demonstrated the limits of military power. It showed that even a militarily superior force can be bogged down in a protracted and costly conflict.
Furthermore, China has not fought a major war in over 4 decades. Its military lacks recent combat experience. In contrast, India has fought several wars since 1962. It has a battle-hardened army. While war games and simulations can provide some training, nothing can replicate the experience of actual combat. This difference in experience could prove significant in a conflict.
China's military leadership is well aware of the potential costs and risks of a war with India. A conflict would be economically devastating for both countries. It would also destabilize the region and damage China's global standing. China's leaders are pragmatic. They are likely to prioritize economic development and regional stability over a risky military adventure. Section 5. Testing the waters China's PLA in UN peacekeeping operations.
China has sought to portray itself as a responsible global actor. It has participated in UN peacekeeping missions in various parts of the world. These missions provide the PLA with valuable experience in operating in diverse and challenging environments. They also allow China to project soft power and enhance its international image.
However, the PLA's performance in UN peacekeeping missions has been mixed. There have been allegations of human rights abuses and a lack of professionalism in some instances. China's commitment to upholding the highest standards of peacekeeping remains under scrutiny. The PLA's participation in UN peacekeeping operations reflects China's growing global ambitions. Section 6, a tale of two arsenals comparing defense technologies.
While China has made significant strides in military technology, India has not lagged far behind. India has invested heavily in acquiring advanced weaponry from various countries, including Russia, France, and the United States. India's defense industry has also made notable progress in recent years.
China, on the other hand, has relied heavily on reverse engineering and intellectual property theft to acquire some of its military technologies. This approach has allowed China to close the technology gap. But it has also raised concerns about the quality and reliability of some of its weapons systems. India's approach of diversifying its sources of arms and developing its own indigenous capabilities provides it with a technological edge in certain areas.
Section 7, the global chessboard, China's strategic priorities and the US factor.
China's primary strategic focus is on competing with the United States for global influence. A war with India would be a major distraction from this goal. It would drain resources and undermine China's efforts to build a global network of allies and partners. China is also acutely aware of the economic risks associated with a conflict with India.
India is a major trading partner of China. A war would disrupt these economic ties and harm both economies. China is already facing economic headwinds due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other factors. A war with India would exacerbate these problems and jeopardize China's future economic prospects. China's leadership is pragmatic. It understands that a war with India would be a costly and risky gamble. China is more likely to pursue its interests through diplomacy, economic leverage, and other non-military means. Section 8, untested might, the uncertainties of China's military prowess.
While China's military modernization is impressive, it is important to note that much of its military hardware and technology remain untested in battle. The PLA has not fought a major conflict since its brief border war with Vietnam in 1979. The lack of recent combat experience raises questions about the PLA's ability to effectively conduct complex military operations.
Warfare has evolved significantly in recent decades. Modern conflicts are characterized by sophisticated electronic warfare, cyber attacks, and the use of drones and other unmanned systems. It is unclear how well the PLA would perform in such a complex and fluid battle space. The PLA's lack of combat experience is a potential vulnerability. Section 9. A world in flux, global events and diplomatic pressures.
Recent global events, such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine, have also had a sobering effect on China's strategic calculus. The pandemic has highlighted the importance of international cooperation and the interconnectedness of the global economy. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated the potential for miscalculation and unintended consequences. These events have underscored the risks and costs of conflict.
China has also faced increasing diplomatic pressure over its assertive foreign policy in recent years. Its actions in the South China Sea, its crackdown on Hong Kong, and its human rights record have drawn condemnation from many countries. China's leaders are likely to be mindful of the potential for further diplomatic isolation and economic sanctions if it were to initiate a conflict with India. Section 10. The high stakes of cooperation, shared challenges and mutual benefits.
Despite their rivalry, China and India face a number of shared challenges that require cooperation. These include climate change, terrorism, pandemics, and global economic instability. Addressing these challenges effectively will require both countries to work together.
Cooperation between China and India would not only benefit both countries, but would also contribute to regional and global stability. A peaceful and prosperous Asia is in the interests of both China and India. It is also essential for global peace and prosperity. Section 11. Charting a peaceful course. The imperative of dialogue and diplomacy. The best way to prevent a conflict between China and India is through dialogue and diplomacy. Both countries need to engage in sustained and meaningful talks to address their differences and find common ground. This will require both sides to show flexibility and a willingness to compromise. Confidence-building measures, such as increased military-to-military exchanges and cooperation on non-traditional security issues, can also help to reduce tensions and build trust. Ultimately, a peaceful and prosperous future for both China and India depends on their ability to manage their rivalry responsibly and find ways to